just because she were an animal didn't stop the brutality of the monster, for she too experienced the terror of living within this house of cruelty. Hello, welcome to In My Words. The book I am reading from is titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles. This book is not intended for young readers. After each reading session, I will briefly give information about a chosen plant. I hope through my words you will gain insight, knowledge, and a deeper appreciation and understanding of this mysterious and intricate world. Though the road may be long and hard, compassion and beauty can be gained through the enjoyment of nature and experiencing its wondrous gifts. Thank you for joining me. Night had finally come. Sarah missed Tippy. She wanted to hold her loving pet and take her for a bike ride. Mom arrived home around 8 p.m. Sarah was happy to see her. After coming home, Mom made supper. This didn't happen often, but all her children were hungry, so Mom decided to make enough food for the whole family. Walking meekly into the kitchen, Sarah stood behind her mom, almost feeling embarrassed as she said, "Mom?" A brief pause, then, "Do you know where Tippy is?" Mom didn't answer, so Sarah continued on. "I looked everywhere, and I can't find her." Moving over to the sink, the distracted woman began pouring water into the percolator to make coffee, hoping that Sarah would drop the subject. Mom kept herself busy as she continued to ignore her daughter's questions. After the pot finished filling, Mom shut the faucet off and placed the pot onto the cupboard, then plugged it in. Sarah stayed on her heels. Sarah knew she had to be patient. She knew the woman before her could keep silent for a very long time, so Sarah waited. Finally, giving in to the pest that followed her, the irritated woman said, "I brought her with me in the car while I was shopping. She jumped out the window when I stopped." Mom made her reply without looking at her daughter. She didn't want to see the expression on the little girl's face. "Where is she? Did she get back in the car?" Sarah questioned anxiously. "No, by the time I got out of the car, she was gone." Mom continued to avoid her daughter. "She'll find her way home," Sarah replied timidly. "I don't think so." Again the avoidance shone through. Mom knew something, but was unwilling to tell Sarah. "But she knows how to get home. I bike with her all the time," the little girl persisted. "Why did she jump out? Did she get scared? She doesn't jump out of my basket when I'm riding," Sarah persisted. Feeling as if she were some caged animal, Mom snapped at her daughter and said, "I don't know why cats do what they do." "She'll come back," Sarah replied, trying to convince herself that Tippy was okay. "I don't think so," Mom responded again, seeming to know that the cat would never return home. Dejected, Sarah knew in her heart that something was wrong. She never saw Tippy again. The young girl was heartbroken. She loved Tippy so very much and missed her. This little pet comforted her, soothed her, and eased her fears when she was scared. Tippy's purr let Sarah know she was loved, if not by her parents or siblings, at least by her kitty. Chapter 23. Butterball. 3 months later, Sarah brought home a stray dog. She asked Mom and Dad if she could keep it. Amazingly, they said yes. The little dog was part Cocker Spaniel and part mutt. The family named the dog Butterball. Butterball was a great dog. She was housebroken, so would only potty and poop outside. Having such a playful and cute dog made the pain of losing Tippy ebb just a little. Sarah was able to love this pet too. Several months later, the 4 older children were coming home after school, excited that Christmas would be coming soon. Dad and Mom were home, something which Scott was unaware of as he entered the house through the front door. The 3 other siblings were close behind. Bending over shortly after entering the house, the 3 other children didn't know that Scott was leaning over to greet Butterball. Just as they approached the door, the small dog bolted out of the house. "Butterball! Butterball!" Scott yelled. "Stop! Stop!" Butterball zipped past Joe, Sissy, and Sarah, not paying attention to the 3 children who were eagerly waiting to play with her. Their eyes followed the small dog as she ran into the street. In unison, the 4 children screamed, Stop! Butterball didn't stop. She wanted her freedom from this house of pain. Just because she were an animal didn't stop the brutality of the monster, for she too experienced the terror of living within this house of cruelty. All four horrified children watched as a car barreled down the street, eyes wide, mouth agape. Their silent screams of "No!" went unheard. Pain seared through the children as they watched the small brown dog become crushed beneath the wheels of the car. Scott felt terrible. Tears poured down his face as he wept aloud. Moments after the shock wore off, blame ensued. Joe and Sissy started yelling at Scott for the death of Butterball. Mom and Dad began their verbal assault upon him shortly after hearing the children scream. They didn't witness the accident, but they saw its after effects. "You stupid piece of SH!" Dad shouted at the stunned boy. "Why the F did you come in the front door?" Dad continued his barrage of insults as he said, "What the F is the matter with you?" Then it came. Dad hit Scott alongside his head. Scott wasn't stunned, but continued to stand in place, while Dad and Mom unrelentingly screamed out offenses to their young boy. "Why in the world would you leave the door open?" Mom countered. "What's the matter with you?" Dad said as he hit his son in the head again. Continuing his tirade, trying to get Scott to cower, he added, "How effing stupid can you be?" Sarah felt sad for Scott. She felt sad for Butterball. Sarah wanted to give Scott a hug and make him feel better. Instead, she went to her room and cried. I appreciate all of you who are watching my videos. If you have any questions regarding plant growing, or if you are interested in learning why I wrote the books I have, and if I am working on another book or two, please leave your comments below and I will try to get back to you in a timely manner. I am doing all the editing and producing of this content on my own. I never expected doing this at this stage of my life, but when circumstances demand, then it is important for me to create income where I can. Leaving a comment will help my videos get noticed more in the future and allow other people to view them. Also, purchasing one or both of my books will be very helpful. Thank you for your time and consideration. Unless the soil of a garden be good and sufficiently deep for the largest plants it is designed to maintain, the subsequent labor it will require will be immense without being successful. Its productions will, I believe the word is constantly, but I think it was spelled wrong. I'm not certain. Exhibit symptoms of disease which no attention can eradicate. A mellow loam which is friable when tolerably dry, and neither clammy nor wholly unadhesive when wet, may be fully approved, as moderate labor and expense will fit it for any purpose if it be sufficiently deep. Its depth should never be more than 2 feet where trees and shrubs are required. Even 3 feet is rather shallow, and for a really fine garden, 4 feet of good soil may be considered necessary. If it do not already exist, that's the way it's written in the book, the expense of the garden will in the end prove the least possible if it be artificially increased. To secure proper nourishment for the roots of the trees, in whatever direction they may spread, the soil should be uniformly deep in every part, as well where the graveled walks are to be made as for the borders. The flower garden is generally laid out in the nicest care and in the choicest situation. The fruit and kitchen gardens are generally more concealed. A shrubbery is a frequent appendage to the flower garden, but more frequently shrubs are intermixed with the flowers. Miller recommends the following rules to be observed in the deposition of a large garden. There ought always be a descent of at least 3 steps from the house to the garden. This will render the house more dry and wholesome, and the prospect on entering the garden more extensive. The first thing that ought to present itself to view should be an open lawn of grass, which ought to be considerably broader than the front of the building, and if the depth be 1/2 more than the width, it will have a better effect. If on the sides of the lawn there are trees planted irregularly by way of open groves, the regularity of the lawn will be broken, and the whole rendered more like nature. For convenience of walking in damp weather, the whole should be surrounded with a gravel walk, on the outside of which should be borders 3 or 4 feet wide for flowers, and from the back of these the prospect will be agreeably terminated by a slope of evergreen shrubs, which, however, should never be suffered to curtail any agreeable prospect. The walk should lead by gentle windings through the different plantations, where shade and seclusion may be enjoyed at pleasure. Running water, where it can be introduced, has a much more agreeable effect than stagnant ponds. The several parts of the garden should be diversified, but wherever the eye takes in the whole at once, the two sides should be similar. Everywhere the greatest art is required to avoid the appearance of art. Nothing is more offensive to the eye of taste than trees and shrubs cut to symmetrical figures. In the kitchen garden, which is often conjoined with the fruit garden, the borders should be about 8 or 10 feet broad. The borders exposed to the south are fittest for early plants, and those exposed to the north for late ones, taking care not to plant any deep-rooting plants, especially beans and peas, very near the fruit trees. The division of the ground must be determined by its size and shape. Care should be taken not to have very small divisions, as they will require an unnecessary number of walks, and in the areas enclosed by, I'm going to spell this next word because I really don't know if they're supposed to be saying trellises, but I will spell it and you can look it up. It is Treilllages. Okay, now I will continue on. Plants will not thrive for want of a free exposure. A walk 6 feet broad will be sufficient for a garden of moderate size, but in a large one 10 feet may be allowed. On each side of the walk should be a border of 3 or 4 feet between it and its espaliers. I don't know how to say that word. I'll spell it. It's a way of training your fruit trees to be on a trellis. The spelling of it is Espaliers. These borders are suitable for salads and other plants which neither take deep root nor continue long, and the short should be varied each year. A constant attention to digging and weeding is indispensable to the success of a garden, as also the use of abundance of manure, for the properties of the different kinds of which we refer to agriculture, and shall now proceed to treat the principal operations required in this branch of culture. One thing I'm going to make note on is, as I'm reading this, I realize how very concise they are, but again, if a lay person is reading this, it's going to be very confusing because it seems so overwhelming and almost impossible to do. And yet, gardening is very easy. Put a seed in the garden, water it, and watch it grow, and make sure you have plenty of sunlight. So, anyways, I'm just saying that to me it seems overwhelming if I were new at gardening. So, for today, that was this reading. And next time I will continue reading, and we will begin on page 655. Please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to having you join me again next time, where I will highlight another plant, and I will continue to read from the book titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles, which you can purchase from Amazon.com. Thank you for having joined me.